Hello and welcome to another lesson with Rivera Fine Art Studios. So glad that you could join me today. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is the differences between glazing, scumbling, and Vellatura layers in a painting. So these are all indirect painting methods, and there's a little bit of confusion about them. So I wanted to explain that, and I'll be showing you clips of a demonstration where I'm doing all three of those in a single painting in a little while. But first I just wanted to talk about the differences. So the first one I'll discuss is glazing. Glazing is a technique where you use very thinned out and transparent pigments by adding a high oil content to your paint. So this does a couple of things. It makes the paint flow over the surface with ease, because essentially what you're doing is you're thinning it out, almost watering it down a little bit. However, when you're using the oil has a viscosity to it. So it's not watered down in the sense of like a watercolor. There's still a little bit of a thickness to it because the oil is viscous. However, it also makes the paint very translucent. There is also a method you can use where you start to mix additional colors into the glaze while it's still wet, usually to modify a color or perhaps make something a little bit more opaque. And that is a method which is referred to as couching. And I'll very often do that in addition to glazing. Glazing can be done in several layers. Typically, you're going to be doing that more as a finishing layer. However, that isn't always the case. I would recommend doing that not as a first layer, because you don't want to add a lot of oil content to your paint in that first layer. You want to apply the fat over lean method, which simply means as you are building your layers up, you're going to gradually increase the oil content. So a lot of times I will do glazing, maybe as a second or third layer, and then I might do a little bit of scumbling on top of that, which is the next technique that I'm going to talk about. So scumbling is also a translucent layer. However, one of the big differences is that there is not going to be a lot of oil content in the paint. When you scumble, traditionally, you're doing it as a very dry layer. I sometimes will add oil in a scumble just because that will make the paint flow better. A lot of times if you don't have the oil, you get these sort of textural qualities, and the paint almost feels like it's dragging, might feel a little bit sticky, and you might not be able to manipulate it quite as well. So in the demonstration I'm going to show you, I'm working on a glass bottle, and I applied glazes first, and then I'm using scumbling over top of that to create the highlights. There's another term which is referred to as Vellatura, and this sort of encompasses a little bit of both. So if you're thinking about a Vellatura layer, it's a very thin layer. It's perhaps more opaque than a glaze, perhaps a little less opaque than a scumble, but you will be using a little bit of oil content when you're using a Vellatura. So it's what I refer to as a semi-opaque layer. And a lot of times it's going to be the very first layer that I apply over the underpainting. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into the demonstration now. And I also will be talking over the video to just kind of give you some ideas of what I'm doing at various points. So without any further ado, let's jump into the video. Okay, so here I am using my first color layer over the underpainting, And you can see the underpainting is really limited to kind of warm and cool grays. So now I'm starting to add darker colors, particularly working with purples right now and working with different shades of that. And this layer is still somewhat translucent. It's referred to as a Vellatura. So it's not heavy, it's not really super thick, and it's not completely covering the underpainting. A little bit of that is still reflecting through. However, this is probably the most opaque color layer that I'll be using. Now I'm going to be working with a glaze. So I'm doing a general glaze over the entire thing, and then I'm starting to work additional colors back into the glaze with opaque paint. This is referred to as couching. The opaque paint mixes with the wet glaze, and you can get really nice, smoothly blended edges. You want to use a soft bristled brush and just kind of, continually sort of brush out any visible strokes, because glass, after all, is a very smooth surface. This layer is also translucent, so it's providing sort of this luminous inner glow. You kind of are getting a sense of the light behind the glass reflecting through, and you can really create amazing color subtleties using this method. I'm also continuing to work more details into the painting, some additional clouds, just using light and dark variations of that purple and pinks and, very limited oranges and so forth. So really one of the most exciting layers of the painting, I would say, is this third layer of glazing and couching. Okay, so now I am working on the fourth and final layer. This is where I begin to add the highlights on the surface of the glass. So this gives a little bit more dimension to the glass. And I'm doing that with tinted color. So in this case, I'm using paint that has white mixed in with it, but I'm still applying it translucently. And this is referred to as scumbling. I'm going to color correct in this layer as well. So if there's areas where I need to, adjust, maybe one of the pinker tones is a little bit too dull and I need to add more vibrancy, or I need to darken a value, I'll still go back and do some glazing. And the other thing you can see that I'm doing right now is I'm adding very fine details. I'm adding the little beads of water from the condensation using my smallest brush. So this is essentially a finishing layer. And if you'd like to learn more about these techniques, I do offer a lot of classes on this. You can get information on that by visiting my website, which is riverafineartstudio.com. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, please like and subscribe. Thank you.